I was halfway through my Saturday morning coffee when my phone buzzed. Mom and Dad lit up the screen like a ghost I hadn't seen in over a decade. 13 years, that's how long it had been since I last heard from them. No birthdays, no holidays, not even a condolence card when my heart surgery nearly took me out at 25. I stared at the name for a good 10 seconds, thumb hovering over the decline button, before something in me, curiosity or stupidity, maybe both, made me answer. Olivia. My mother's voice came through thin and breathy, like she was trying to sound gentle but forgot how. Your father and I, we need to see you. There's something important we'd like to discuss, in person. That was it. No warm-up, no how have you been or we miss you, just a meeting request like we were business associates, not family. I stayed silent long enough for her to fill the gap with, Ashley will be there too, it's about her, please come. The line clicked off before I could respond. Not that I had anything to say. What do you even say to parents who spent your childhood treating you like a charity case and your adulthood pretending you didn't exist? Greg was in the kitchen slicing bagels. When I told him, he froze, knife midair. Are they dying or something, he asked, half joking, half serious. Or did Ashley need something shiny and decided you were useful again? I shrugged, no clue, but I said I'd go. We drove 2 hours from Columbus to my parents' house in a leafy suburb outside Cincinnati. It was the same old colonial-style monstrosity they loved flaunting as a symbol of Brennan's success. Ashley's SUV was already in the driveway, sparkling white and freshly detailed, parked perfectly parallel as always. The moment we stepped in, the air felt staged. The living room was spotless, candles lit, wine glasses waiting. Ashley appeared from the hallway, dressed in a loose lavender blouse that floated over her midsection a little too strategically. She smiled, like we were best friends reuniting, not sisters who hadn't spoken since I left for college. Olivia, she cooed, arms out like she expected me to fall into them. I didn't. I just nodded. Greg's hand found the small of my back. My parents emerged from the kitchen looking old. My dad's salt and pepper hair had surrendered to more salt than pepper, and my mom's sharp features had only grown sharper with age. They smiled too forced, plastic. We sat, no small talk, my father cleared his throat. We appreciate you coming, Liv. He only called me that when he wanted something. Ashley has been going through some challenges. Ashley dabbed the corner of her eye delicately, like she was in a Hallmark movie. I can't have children, she said quietly, looking down. After my miscarriage last year, we found out my body, it just won't carry a baby to term. I blinked. I didn't even know she'd had a miscarriage. I didn't even know she'd been pregnant. My mother jumped in, which is why we're asking you, well, hoping, really, that you'd consider being her surrogate. You're healthy now. You've always said how you wanted to help people, right? Greg stiffened beside me. I could feel his pulse in his hand. You want me, I said slowly, to carry Ashley's baby. It would be your gift to her, my dad added, like I was about to donate a used couch, not grow a human being inside my body. Ashley leaned forward, eyes shiny with pretend gratitude. You're the only one I trust with this, Liv. We could start the process right away. The eggs are ready. We've been hopeful. Wait, eggs. You've already done the retrieval? I asked. Ashley nodded. A few weeks ago. And you just assumed I'd say yes? No one answered. I stood up. We drove 2 hours so you could spring this on me like it's a favor? Like I owe you something? My mom's face turned. Olivia, after everything we did for you, after all those medical bills, we thought you'd be grateful enough to give back. There it was, the dagger wrapped in sentiment, the unspoken price tag they'd been hanging on me since birth. Greg stood too. We're leaving. No, wait, Ashley said, standing as well, her hand instinctively going to her stomach, not because she was pregnant, because she wanted to look fragile. but I was already at the door. The last thing I heard before it closed behind us was my father muttering, "Selfish, just like always." I didn't cry, not until we were halfway down the freeway and Greg reached over, laced his fingers with mine, and whispered, "You don't owe them a damn thing." And that's when I broke. Ashley was always the golden child. Even when we were kids, it was like she walked in a halo of praise while I existed in a shadow that didn't belong to me. She was 4 years older, tall, graceful, always polished. Our miracle baby, as my mother used to say to anyone who would listen. Ashley never gave us trouble. Straight A's, class president, full scholarship to Northwestern. She said it like a commercial. Perfect daughter, perfect package. And then there was me, Olivia, the afterthought, the burden. I was born early, barely 5 pounds and blue, with a heart that didn't know how to beat properly. I spent most of my infancy in the hospital, tubes and wires and beeping machines. My first birthday, celebrated in a pediatric ICU, while my sister had a princess party with a pony in our backyard. For years, I believed I was lucky they kept me at all. My earliest memories are of being told, "Don't touch that, it's Ashley's. And let your sister have it, she deserves it more." Once when I was maybe 6, Ashley shoved me so hard I fell off the porch and cracked my wrist. When I cried, my mom scolded me for being dramatic. "You're always getting hurt, can't you be more careful?" Ashley got new shoes, new bikes, ballet classes, summer camps. I got hand-me-downs and silence. I tried to be good. I tried so hard. I learned to cook dinner by 11, to stay invisible when Dad got home in one of his moods, to swallow questions and praise my sister for things I secretly ached to do myself. In middle school, I won a regional writing contest. First place, a statewide award ceremony. My parents didn't come. Ashley had a soccer scrimmage. They mailed me a card 2 days later. "Good job. Love, Mom and Dad." By high school, I'd stopped trying to impress them. I turned inward, stuck to books, counted down the days to graduation like they were rungs on a ladder out of hell. Ashley, meanwhile, was thriving. Prom queen, varsity captain, early admission to college. Every family photo from that era looks like I wandered into someone else's. One time, I confronted my mom about it. I was 17, angry, raw. I asked her, bluntly, why she never treated me like I mattered. She didn't yell. She just looked at me like I was dense and said, "Sweetheart, it's not about mattering. Ashley's just easier to love." That was the day something inside me shut off. Not broke, froze. Like frostbite creeping across skin you stop feeling before it turns black. By the time I was in college, they'd mostly stopped pretending. Ashley called the shots. Family holidays scheduled around her, conversations centered on her relationships, her ambitions, her plans. When I mentioned graduating early with honors, my dad changed the subject to Ashley's engagement. And yet, they never let me forget the cost of my existence. Every time they brought up my childhood, it was about bills. "We nearly lost the house after your surgery. We skipped vacations because of your hospital stays. Ashley could have had a better college fund if we didn't spend so much on your health." I used to wonder, if I hadn't made it, would they have grieved? Or would it have been a relief? I carried that question into adulthood, and even now, sitting in the car with Greg, after that twisted reunion, it echoed like a whisper I couldn't silence. "You don't owe them a damn thing," Greg had said, but part of me still felt like I did. Like maybe, just maybe, if I gave them this one thing, this pregnancy, maybe they'd finally see me. Then I remembered my mother's words that day. Ashley's just easier to love. And I realized something brutal and freeing all at once. No matter what I did, they were never going to love me the way they loved her, because I wasn't Ashley. I was never supposed to be. The next few days were a blur. I kept replaying that visit over and over in my head. Every word, every look, every loaded pause. Greg stayed close, watching me like I was made of glass and might shatter if he stepped too far away. I told him I was fine. I wasn't. Then came the email. It landed in my inbox on a rainy Wednesday morning, just as I was finishing a Zoom call. The subject line read, "Egg retrieval confirmation, Brennan, Olivia." I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Inside was a cheerful message from a fertility clinic in Dayton, confirming my upcoming appointment for hormonal prep and noting that phase 1 of the donation was successful. I blinked. I hadn't stepped foot in any clinic. Greg leaned over, read the email, and immediately stood up. "Call them." I did. The receptionist put me on hold, then transferred me to a nurse who cheerfully confirmed that Olivia Brennan's egg retrieval procedure took place 2 weeks ago and that they were preparing for surrogacy implantation. "I never agreed to any of this," I said, my voice sharp. "I didn't sign anything. I never even visited." There was a pause on the line. Then, "The forms we have on file are signed with your name. Photo ID was provided. Everything appears legitimate. Can you send me copies?" "Yes, of course." The documents arrived within the hour. Greg and I sat side by side, scrolling through the PDFs in stunned silence. The signature was mine, but not mine. It looked like mine, but just slightly off, like someone had practiced copying it from old school forms. The photo ID was a scan of my expired driver's license from 5 years ago. Where the hell did they even get that? Greg's jaw clenched. "They had to have dug through your old records. You kept your college documents at your parents' house, right?" I nodded slowly. "They must have pulled something from my old bedroom." "That's identity fraud, Olivia." "Medical fraud." And yet, even with the legal weight of it all, what gutted me wasn't just the lie, it was the assumption. They didn't even ask, they just decided, like my body was theirs to sign off on. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a message from Ashley. "Hey sis, I know the clinic probably contacted you. Sorry for the confusion. We were just trying to speed things along. Everything's nearly ready. We're so grateful you're doing this. Love you." I stared at it for a long time, then handed the phone to Greg. He read it, then looked at me like he was waiting for me to scream or cry or break something. I didn't. I just sat there, numb. The next day, we got a call from a lawyer. Ours. Greg had already contacted someone, a woman named Angela who specialized in family law and medical consent issues. She listened patiently as I walked her through everything, her voice calm but clipped. First, she said, "You need to immediately file a cease and desist with the clinic. Second, we'll request a forensic analysis of the signatures. Third, if your parents or sister continue contact, we can pursue a protection order based on medical coercion." Greg nodded firmly. I just nodded, period. That evening, I received another message from my mother. This time, it wasn't sweet or subtle. "Olivia, this isn't just about Ashley. It's about family. You owe us this. We gave you life. We saved your life. You wouldn't even be here if it weren't for us. Don't be ungrateful." I don't remember dropping the phone, but I remember the sound it made hitting the kitchen tile. I remember Greg picking it up and turning it off. I remember the way he pulled me into his arms like he could block out the world, and for a moment, I almost believed he could. But that was the moment I knew this wasn't just about a baby, it was about control, about a family that had always seen me as a debt to be collected, and now they were calling it due. The smear campaign began quietly, just a few whispers, some concerned texts from extended relatives, a distant cousin commenting, "Hope everything's okay," under a photo I'd posted 2 weeks ago. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, but then Aunt Marlene called. Olivia, honey, I'm not trying to take sides, she said gently, which of course meant she already had. But Margaret told us you'd volunteered, and now you're backing out. It's not fair to Ashley. She's devastated. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, heart thudding like a warning siren. Volunteered? I repeated. That's what your mom said. She told us you agreed to be the surrogate last month, even started hormone treatments, and now you're being difficult. I almost laughed. That never happened. None of it. Well, maybe it was just a misunderstanding. No, Marlene, it was a lie. By the time I hung up, my hands were shaking. Greg walked in, carrying the mail. He took one look at me and set it down. What now? They're turning the whole family against me. The next day, a family friend from church messaged me. Then another. Someone had told their community that I was withholding life from my sister, some kind of selfish rebellion because I'd always envied her blessings. It was like they were painting me as the villain in a story I didn't even know I was in. Greg was livid. This is defamation, he said, pacing the living room. They're weaponizing public sympathy. It's psychological warfare. I didn't respond. I was too busy scrolling through a private Facebook group for our extended family, where someone, my mother, I'm sure, had posted a blurry childhood photo of me and Ashley in matching dresses. The caption read, "Sisters by chance, best friends by choice. Olivia's giving Ashley the most selfless gift of all." There were hearts, prayers, congratulations. People were tagging Ashley. Someone even commented, "God bless you, Olivia. You're an angel on earth." Greg reached over and closed my laptop. "We need to end this." Angela, our lawyer, had already filed the cease and desist with the fertility clinic. Now she was preparing a formal complaint for medical fraud. But before anything else could move forward, something else came, something I never expected. A knock at the door. It was a county official and a social worker, both holding clipboards and grave expressions. "Are you Olivia Brennan?" the woman asked. "We're following up on a petition filed with the court regarding your mental fitness." I blinked. "My what?" She handed me a copy of the document. I scanned it, my breath catching with every line. It was a formal petition to evaluate me for involuntary psychological hold. The claim: Olivia Brennan exhibited signs of emotional instability, paranoia, and delusional behavior, and might be endangering a potential unborn child. Greg stormed in, demanding answers, and Angela arrived within the hour, intercepting them before anything else could escalate. The petition, she said, was flimsy and filled with circular logic, but it had been filed, and that alone was a serious warning shot. "They're trying to paint you as mentally unfit," Angela said, voice tight, "because if they can make that stick, they can take control of the embryo and possibly your legal rights around the procedure. But the embryo isn't even in me. I never signed anything." But that's not the point. This is about leverage, control, intimidation. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling while Greg breathed softly beside me. Every noise outside sounded like a new threat. Every vibration on my phone made my stomach twist. The next morning, I opened my email to find a message from the clinic's director. It was a formal apology, along with a statement that they were temporarily suspending the process and reviewing documentation inconsistencies. Attached was a full digital audit trail of every form submitted. That's when we saw it. My name, my signature, my photo. But the metadata showed that the forms had been uploaded not from a clinic kiosk, but from a personal computer. Greg zoomed in on the IP address. "It's theirs," he whispered. "It's from your parents' house." My mouth went dry. They submitted it themselves? "We printed everything." Angela called it gold. "This will bury them," she said. But even with that, I felt hollow. Not relieved, not victorious, just exhausted. I had spent so many years trying to escape the toxic gravity of that family, only to be pulled right back into orbit, my body once again a battleground. That night, as I stood in the shower, water scalding my skin just enough to feel real, I thought about something Ashley used to say whenever I got in trouble as a kid. "You're not meant for anything big, Liv. You're the footnote, the filler." Maybe that's what they still believed. But this time, I wasn't going to let them write my story for me. Greg had always been calm in a crisis, measured, rational, the type to double-check locks and documents twice. But after the visit from the county officials and that IP address revelation, something in him cracked. "They're not just manipulative," he said. "They're dangerous. And they're getting desperate." He started working late at his home office, not for work, but to trace every possible digital breadcrumb tied to the forged documents. Meanwhile, I stayed home, avoiding calls, messages, and every possible trigger. My inbox was still flooded with guilt-drenched notes from distant relatives and family acquaintances. Some were confused, some aggressive, some passive-aggressive in that syrupy way Midwesterners had perfected. But one stood out. It was a voice message from Emily Sanders, Ashley's college friend and former roommate. I hadn't seen her in over 10 years. "Hey, Liv," she started, her voice hesitant. "I probably shouldn't be calling, but I saw that post your mom shared, and something about it didn't sit right with me. Ashley used to talk about how she'd never give up her figure for a baby. She said, and I quote, 'That's what broke girls and surrogates are for.' I thought it was a joke. Now, I'm not so sure. Just be careful, okay?" My blood ran cold. That night, Greg handed me a flash drive. "What's this?" "A backup copy of a conversation." He'd installed a discreet, voice-activated recorder in the guest bathroom at my parents' house weeks ago, tucked behind an old ceramic vase on the shelf. He said he got the idea after noticing they always took their private calls there when we visited, years ago. "I thought it was paranoia," he said. "Now, I'm glad I was paranoid." We sat down and listened. The audio was grainy, but the voices were unmistakable. Actually, I can't believe Olivia's making this so difficult. I thought she'd just go along with it. She always caves. "Margaret, you need to stay calm. She doesn't know how deep this goes. The paperwork's already in the system." "Do you think she's actually going to fight it? What if she calls the police?" "Margaret, let her. We'll make her look unstable. That therapist from her college years, remember? We'll say she's been struggling again. No court will believe her over you." "Ashley, I can't carry a pregnancy. I won't. My contract with the brand starts in 6 months. I can't ruin my body now. Not for this." "Margaret, you won't have to. Just smile. Let Olivia do what she's supposed to do." I stopped the audio. It was like someone had turned my lungs inside out. They planned this from the start. Greg nodded slowly. "And now we have proof." Angela almost screamed when she heard it. "This changes everything," she said. "We'll get an injunction. If they try anything again, it'll be criminal." But that wasn't the only surprise waiting. The next day, we received a manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a stack of photocopies, emails, receipts, and a note written in shaky, anonymous handwriting. "Thought you should know where the rest of the money went." Turns out, Ashley and my parents had submitted reimbursement forms under my name to a local private donor program for gestational carriers in financial distress. They'd collected over $18,000, 0 cents so far, on the premise that I was a struggling single woman who needed support during surrogacy. The donor, a church-run medical assistance program, my name and face were on the application. Lifted from an old photo and used without consent. My stomach turned. They hadn't just stolen my identity. They'd turned me into a charity case. Again. "I'm going public," I said to Greg that night. "They want to control the narrative, paint me as unstable. Fine, let's show the world the truth." He didn't even hesitate. Reddit. We created a throwaway account. I wrote everything, start to finish. No names, no locations, just the raw story. The medical fraud, the forged consent, the social pressure, the gaslighting, the digital trail, the audio recordings. The donor scam. Within 24 hours, it hit the front page. Comments poured in by the thousands. People were furious. Doctors, lawyers, therapists, strangers, all validating the horror I had been dragged through. Some even offered pro bono legal advice. Others offered to report the clinic. Many just wrote, "I believe you. I'm sorry this happened to you." I cried for a full hour, not because I was hurt, but because for once people saw me, not Ashley's sister, not the sick kid, not the burden, just me, and they believed me. The morning after my Reddit post went viral, everything shifted. The world, for the first time in my life, tilted in my favor. Messages flooded in from reporters, legal advocates, and women with eerily similar stories. But while the public rallied behind me, my family went into damage control. Ashley posted a photo of herself holding a sonogram that wasn't hers, with a caption that read, "Sometimes the people you love the most hurt you the worst, but I choose forgiveness." The comments were filled with sympathy and blind support. "You're so strong. Your sister will come around. We're praying for her healing." Then came the cease and desist letter from them, delivered by courier, printed on thick cardstock like it was an invitation to a gala. The letter accused me of defamation, emotional distress, and reputational damage. It demanded I remove all online posts, issue a public apology, and agree to a closed-door mediation facilitated by a family counselor. At the bottom was a handwritten note from my father. "You still have a chance to fix this. Don't make it worse." Greg nearly laughed reading it. They still think they're in control. Angela was furious. "You don't respond. We go full legal, but you need to prepare for one more move. They're going to try something big." And she was right. 2 days later, I got the call. It was Margaret. Her voice was clipped, brittle. "Olivia, this has gone far enough. You've embarrassed this family, twisted the truth, and dragged Ashley through the mud." "No, Mom, I exposed what you tried to hide." "You're confused, always have been. That's why we've filed for emergency guardianship over your frozen embryos. Legally, we have standing." "You forged documents," I said coldly. "You committed fraud." She ignored it. "We have medical professionals who can testify that you've been unstable for years. We've already spoken to the judge." That's when I snapped. "You don't get to use my trauma against me anymore. You created it." Silence on the line. Then came the crack. "You're lucky we even took you in," she hissed. "We could have left you where you came from." My pulse stopped. "What did you say? You think we owe you something? You're not even ours. We rescued you from that junkie in Cincinnati who was going to leave you at the ER like garbage. You should be grateful we gave you a name, a home, a life." I don't remember hanging up. I remember the sound of my heartbeat in my ears. I remember Greg's voice somewhere in the background asking what happened. I remember sitting down like the floor had been ripped out from under me. And then I remember laughing, not because it was funny, but because it finally made sense. All of it. The distance, the resentment, the way I was always too much or not enough, the constant reminder of what things cost, of what I owed. I wasn't their daughter. I was a debt they thought they could collect on. I called Angela, told her everything. She didn't flinch. "This changes things legally. If you were never formally adopted, they may not even have parental rights over your medical history. We can use this." Greg sat beside me on the couch that night, rubbing my back like he was trying to press all the broken pieces back into place. "I don't know who I am," I whispered. "You're Olivia," he said. "You are exactly who you made yourself to be, and they don't get to define that anymore." That night, I deleted my parents' numbers from my phone, and for the first time in my life, I meant it when I said, "They are not my family. Not anymore." After the phone call with Margaret, I stopped using the word family altogether. There was nothing left to salvage, not a single thread that hadn't already been pulled apart by deceit, control, and conditional love. But what surprised me was what came after. Stillness. No more late-night emails from the clinic, no surprise knocks on the door, no masked threats hiding behind well-written legalese. For the first time in months, it was quiet. Greg and I sat in our kitchen on a Thursday morning, drinking coffee like normal people. The sun came through the blinds in wide golden slants. He looked at me like he hadn't been able to for weeks. "So," he said softly, "what do you want to do now?" I didn't answer immediately. But later that day, I called Angela and told her to proceed with every legal measure available. Perjury, fraud, identity theft. All of it. "We're not doing this to punish them," I said. "We're doing this so they don't do it to anyone else." Angela agreed. She'd already begun drafting formal charges, including a notice to the donor organization that had been conned into giving Ashley and my parents money under my name. Turns out the foundation was furious. They had lawyers of their own. In the meantime, I did something else, something unexpected. I contacted a local reproductive rights group. I told them my story, anonymously at first. They connected me with a single mother who'd recently lost her chance at IVF due to a clerical error and lack of insurance. She was 41, a NICU nurse, and had been trying for nearly a decade. Her name was Camille. After a few Zoom calls and a lot of legal paperwork, I made a decision not to carry a child, not to sacrifice my body again, but to donate the remaining viable embryos from my early fertility preservation, the ones I had banked long before this nightmare began. Camille cried when she read the letter I sent with the medical documents. I told her I didn't want anything in return. No updates, no expectations, just the knowledge that something born of pain might one day bring someone else joy. It was the first time in months I felt something like peace. Around that same time, Greg reached out to his friend in media consulting. We didn't want a documentary. We weren't angling for a book deal, but we wanted to tell the story on our terms, uncensored, unpolished, unfiltered. The truth. They helped us record a long-form podcast episode under a pseudonym, sharing our experience with identity fraud, medical coercion, and generational trauma. Within a week, it had 500,000 plays. Survivors of similar family dynamics began writing in. One woman said, "You put words to something I didn't know how to name." I saved that message. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I booked a therapy appointment for me. Not because I was broken, but because I was rebuilding. I walked into that office and said, "I want to learn how to stop feeling guilty for not loving people who hurt me." My therapist smiled. That's where we begin. As the legal case moved forward, Margaret and Dennis tried to countersue for emotional damages. Their lawyer dropped them after listening to 5 minutes of the audio Greg recorded. Ashley went silent online. The fake sonogram post vanished without explanation. I heard from a friend of a friend that a few of her brand sponsorships quietly backed out. Apparently, public sympathy has its limits. But I didn't chase revenge. I chased something else entirely. Closure. Because healing isn't just about cutting people off. It's about refusing to let their poison take root in the life you're trying to grow. And for the first time in years, I felt something new blooming. A life that belonged entirely to me. We moved to Oregon in early spring, not to run away, but to begin again. Gray got a remote position with a design firm based in Portland. I found a quiet rhythm teaching creative writing part-time at a local community college. We rented a small house near a lake, nothing fancy, just warm wood floors and windows that invited in the kind of light that makes you forget the dark ever existed. The silence here was different, not the silence of isolation or punishment. This was the kind that cradled you, gave you room to breathe, to feel, to dream. Every morning, I walked barefoot into our backyard with a mug of coffee and stared out at the fog lifting off the lake like ghosts finally letting go. Somewhere in the middle of all this peace, I started writing. Not a tell-all, not a revenge manifesto, just memories, fragments. The girl who learned to stop apologizing, the woman who learned to say no, the survivor who stopped asking for permission to exist. I didn't know if I'd ever publish it. That wasn't the point. I was writing for me, for the version of myself that still lived in old journals and unanswered prayers. Then one afternoon, a letter came in the mail. Not an email, not a message. A real, physical letter, sealed in an envelope, with handwriting I recognized instantly. Ashley. I stood on the porch for 5 minutes before opening it. Inside, a single page. No greeting, no apology, no remorse. You win, I hope. You're proud of what you did to this family. If being right makes you happy, then congratulations. You got everything you ever wanted. A clean slate, a new home, a husband who thinks you're a saint. But you'll always be the girl who couldn't handle being second best. And now, you're nothing to us. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I didn't even shake. I folded the letter in half and tucked it into the drawer of my writing desk, beneath a stack of old notebooks. Not as a keepsake, as a reminder that survival doesn't always come with an apology from the people who tried to destroy you. Sometimes closure is the silence you choose not to fill. A week later, I got an update from Camille. One of the embryos had taken. She was pregnant. The email was simple, full of cautious hope and restrained joy. She said she'd send no more updates unless I asked. I didn't ask, but I did cry. For her, for me, for every woman who'd ever had her body treated like a contract, a bargaining chip, a debt owed. This time, life was given freely. This time, it was mine to give. Greg and I celebrated quietly. He made lemon risotto. We lit a candle. We danced barefoot in the living room to a playlist we made back when we were too broke to afford furniture. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Months passed. The legal case continued in the background. Depositions, filings, silence from the other side. Angela said we were winning, but honestly, I had already won. Because I had something they would never understand. One evening after dinner, I sat down at my laptop and opened a blank document. At the top, I typed, "My name is Olivia Brennan, and this is the story of how I set myself free. Not from a family, but from the belief that I needed one to be complete. The truth is, blood doesn't make a family. Love does. Boundaries do. Choice does. I may have been born into the Brennan household, but I chose this life. I chose Greg. I chose peace. I chose me. And for the first time, that was enough. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks or a dramatic courtroom win. Sometimes it's as quiet as breathing easy on your front porch, knowing no one can take your voice from you again. Sometimes freedom has a name, and mine is Olivia.